Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trending. We're recording on Tuesday. You're probably watching on Thursday, August 2nd. We're having to do another pre-record this week. It was another busy week. So,
yeah, man.
Hello, Joe.
Trying to be organized. Hello.
We're doing our best to squeeze these in. Our summer schedule is kind of bonkers. We're trying to get these.
Maybe next summer won't be so crazy.
Maybe so.
We did go to France and back.
We did. Yeah. We had missed last week. Was that last week, right? So thanks for your flexibility as we continue to try to squeeze these in whenever we can. But
yes. Yeah.
Okay, we've got kind of a big topic. Should we just dive in today? I feel like this might take a while to
Olympic
figure all this
theme,
out.
Right?
Let's do it. So the big news in the world this week is the Olympic Opening Ceremony, right? So it was a week ago, big splash in Paris, and obviously there's a lot that happened during the opening ceremonies, and most of it wasn't necessarily super noteworthy, but the thing that everybody's talking about is this one clip as part of the ceremonies, which now I've tried to watch it and I can't find it. I think they've kind of taken it down, scrubbed it out of the internet history, I guess.
Add that to the
yes
to the pile,
to the controversy, I guess. But so everyone watching, I'm sure, has seen the screen grabs of there's this big table and there's a kind of a central figure and there's people around him or her, and they kind of screen grabbed that, and it was a big controversy because at first glance it looks a lot like the Last Supper painting, and so people were upset because there was a drag queen and some LGBTQ people kind of reenacting that scene, and it was kind of meant to be this kind of opulent display of acceptance and unity and whatever, but of course people had a variety of opinions about that since it seemed to look like the Last Supper painting. But then there's been a lot of news, again, because it was such an uproar, people are talking about it. They've interviewed everyone who was involved with this. And so they've come out and said that it was actually supposed to be a kind of a homage to Dionysus, the Greek god. There's a kind of a famous painting that shows him at kind of the center of a big table with kind of similar, where there's a lot of people. And so the Olympic Committee and the artist who's in charge of all this have come out and say, yeah, we never meant to offend anybody. We're sorry. This is what we were aiming for. And Dionysus is a Greek god. Obviously, the Olympics have a lot of Greek stuff in them, and there's Mount Olympus. So anyway, it kind of makes sense if that was what they were going for.
Right.
But a lot of people either don't necessarily believe that's what they were doing, or maybe they just haven't researched it and they don't know that that's what they were aiming for, and they just saw the screen grab and got upset about it. So I've got a couple thoughts, but I'd like to start with you, Joe. I know you're following this and you're watching it, and
right.
So what as this is kind of blowing up, what's top of mind for you?
I just remember it didn't take long at church on Sunday. I just walked to the coffee station, and people are talking about it, and so it's obviously on a lot of people's minds. And you saw Christian big figures, commenting right away. It's almost like they felt like they needed to rush into the middle of it all, say something. And then you had, folks trying to, maybe challenge some of those conclusions, like, no, it probably wasn't the Last Supper, it was this. Mm-hmm. And then people trying to be in favor of people speaking up, or people trying to give some caution to speaking up. And so I think we need to be, I think we can be generous. When the Olympics are a worldwide phenomenon, they happen only occasionally. Mm-hmm. And they want to draw people from all over the world to watch this. Yeah. And so when something is not very pleasing to a group of people, albeit a large group of people, like all of Christianity, some were saying this is a mockery of God for all of Christianity from that perspective, I think we have to say it probably does warrant some sort of a response. Mm-hmm. On the other end, it did seem like people were not disciplined enough to poke around, to investigate a little bit, and then maybe take a step back and say, is this a place for me? Is it my place to say anything, yes or no? And so I just think, once again, it's another example of us needing to reflect on when something happens that maybe we don't agree with, that doesn't align with our values, who we are, is it our place to share or not?
Yeah.
Maybe it is. And then, hey, with all the courage and guts that you have, go after it. But if it's not, can we show a little more restraint and discipline? Just allow it to pass by and not give it air and oxygen, because it may actually be working against some of our hopes and dreams for the world around us. Yeah. So there's just a couple of thoughts that I have. But obviously this is where culture and faith is overlapping. So it's a great topic for us on Trending. Trying to make sense of it all. Yes. So that's my first impression of it all.
That's good. And of course, as always, we're not trying to cause up trouble, stir up any controversy. That's not our goal here. No. But I've been reading and processing this a lot. So I'll have one kind of religion theological thought and one kind of art thought. Okay.
All right.
So on the artistic side, so one of my first thoughts when I saw this was, honestly, I was not familiar with the kind of the famous painting of Dionysus. I wasn't familiar with that. So when I started hearing like, oh, it's not supposed to be the Last Supper, it's supposed to be this, I wasn't familiar with that. So I Googled it and I found it. And I mean, I think the screenshot it's kind of a weird hybrid. It kind of looks like the Last Supper. It kind of looks like Dionysus. I could see how people see both paintings in it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, as like on the kind of creative side of things, what I wish the Olympic Committee would have done is let's say they have pure motives. Let's say there's nothing sketchy, nothing. They weren't trying to be sneaky and evil on this. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. If this is really supposed to be Dionysus and that's what their claim was all along, they should have had someone in their crowd who said, you know what, before we broadcast this to the world, this kind of looks like this. Right. This kind of looks like the Lord's Supper. Before we do this, are we sure this is what we want?
Yeah, an adult in the room.
Yes.
Because put it tritely. Yeah.
Every artist, every writer, every producer, like you need someone like that in your circle, right? Who raises a flag and be like, just have you thought about this? Right. This might be coming. Are you ready? Is this what you intended or not? If you're in any kind of field where your work's going to be public, you just need to have that person on your team, right?
Okay.
So I don't know if maybe they didn't have that person, or maybe that person's voice wasn't heard or whatever. But that was my first takeaway was I believe the people in charge that they said this was not what they were intending. I believe that. So because of that, we would all be wise to have someone like that on our team to raise a flag whenever there's potential controversy. So that's my first thought. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and they should have someone on their team to help catch this kind of thing.
Yes.
First thought.
Yeah.
Second thought, I found there's a kind of a viral Facebook and Instagram post that was going around. I decided to read just a couple sentences of it because I think it was kind of an interesting perspective. Right. It's long. I'll summarize it. So this guy who's a pastor said, I have no idea what the intentions were, but what I can say is that every single person at that table would have been invited to Jesus's table. Jesus not only spent his time on earth with sinners, he invited them to the very table everyone assumes the Olympic table represents. Matthew was a tax collector, Peter was about to deny him, Thomas was about to doubt his resurrection, and Judas was about to betray him, and Jesus ate with them anyway. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. That's who our Jesus is he would have eaten with people who are of all backgrounds, of all faiths, of all whatever, right? That's who Jesus was. And so I like that perspective too. Just a reminder, the picture that we're talking about, what was actually happening at that table? Who were the people that were there? Yeah. And that's just a good reminder for us. So
I think it's good. For whatever reason, so Russell Moore's got a book called Losing Our Religion. Yeah. And he's got a chapter, I may have mentioned it before. It's a clever chapter. He's a clever guy. Like, the more I listen to Russell Moore, I think he has a gift to the church. But he says the scandal of the evangelical limbic system. He's actually like riffing off of a very popular classic book in evangelical theology by Mark Knoll, The Scandal of the Evangelical Mind. Okay. It tries to it gets into the details of the liberal fundamentalist controversy in the 1920s, and how this is the challenge of, hey, like, let's be scholarly, let's not condescend just into fighting, particularly making some conclusions that maybe not so logical. Like Mark Knoll's like really trying to raise a flag there. What Russell Moore is insinuating in that chapter of his book is we have seemed to collectively lost our penchant to process something before we respond. Yeah. And I think it's because that's being modeled for us at nearly every place of power in the world around us. But I think also things happen so fast. News cycles turn over so fast. Yeah. If we do not feel like we can't, get a word in, that we've missed our opportunity, and then maybe haven't been so faithful. And so I do think one of the things as I watched the opening ceremony there was a lot of stuff I was not familiar with, like that big scene of that like chateau with people in the windows, like with their heads, kind of like on their hips and their headless, like this is strange. Yeah. And instead of like immediately like critiquing it or coming to a conclusion, I found myself like saying, hey, like sit for a minute and imagine like why the French folks, when the world is, peering into their world, would like to tell a story in this way. Yeah. Would like to bring this to the fore. Is it a bizarre way to do it? Yes. Does it need to demand my attention? No. Like I have the autonomy to attend to this or not. Yeah. But perhaps we should try to process it, to hear the story, to consider all the angles before like saying, okay, now I'm going to take my stand. I can do no other.
Right.
Like, the whole Martin Lutherism. There is a stream of Christianity. A part of our tradition is to protest. Protestantism comes from this word of protesting. It comes from, once again, Luther and the rest. There's early apologists like Justin Martyr and the rest. I think we also have to remember they tried their best to, argue and to lob their complaints to the world. It probably went unnoticed, though. Imagine Justin Martyr in the middle of the Roman Empire, writing this treatise, sending it to the emperor, expecting him to read it, and him getting like a box load of things and saying, "Who is this? Okay, never mind." I just feel like we have to keep in mind we do have this interesting tension. We should, if something truly is contrary and is profane. As Christians, creating the image of God with the task of reconciling the world to God, we should make a protest. It would be important for us to remember there's no requirement for people to hear us. And so when we go unheard, we shouldn't add anger to anger and outrage to outrage. We should keep on trying with the wisdom and grace that God provides. And as Peter tells us, as we make our apology in 1 Peter 3, with the gentleness and respect. And I wonder if that's been lost on us a little bit along the way too.
I think one of the things that mourns me the most right now is I think we just default to protesting. That's our first reaction, is to protest. Anger is our first reaction, not anything else, right? So another thing, as I was processing all this, the verse that came to my mind, it's one of these verses that gets quoted all the times, but James 1:19. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, right? That's the famous part. But then verse 20, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Anger is not what God wants from us. Like, I think you're right that there's a place for us to stand up and to protest. Absolutely. And our history is full of that. So you're totally right. But it just mourns me that anger and protest seems to be the default response these days. And we're not slow to speak, slow to become angry. I just wish our Christian brothers and sisters would be quick to listen. And there's just so much value in that. And that is a good witness to the world. A few years ago, a lot of us on staff were going through that book, The Four. Do you remember that Four? Jeff Henderson, Four.
Oh yeah.
What are Christians known for? Not what are we against, but what are we for? And I think so. We just default to all the things we're against. The people don't really know what we're for.
Right.
And I just hope that we can slowly start to turn that around, because the world needs to know what we're for, not what we're against.
Yeah, and it may not actually get all that much attention. I was thinking about this. On the morning walk, is sorting out life. It does seem like the reason that people kind of rage against something and protest is because that's the stuff that's breaking through, man. Kind of like the stunt throwing that we see politicians doing, where something doesn't really have to have all that much substance. But if it creates a response, if it gets you more subscribers, more views, it seems to be the thing that has the greatest currency today. And I don't know. I mean, we're going to get 100 years down the road, and people are going to look back. And I just hope in the wisdom of God, in the economy of God, those who were patient, those who were thoughtful, those who not just had a perspective ideologically, but their habits matched a better way. Like those that will look back and see those folks actually really shaped the world, and not those who got a lot of immediate attention on things. Because I think we do see great examples of people in a more creative form of communication. It does break through. And I think it's a breath of fresh air. And I do think that there's like a collective exhaustion in our culture today, including the church. I talk to ministry peers, and they say, if we knew that a lot of our time would be spent on these things, maybe we would have thought about something else to do, because this is exhausting, and you don't ever seem like you get a break, right? And so more than any other time that I've been able to witness and experience personally, there is just a craving and a thirst and a hunger for calm, thoughtful discourse that still has the weight to shape and form minds and communities that are good news. Yeah. And that's a lot of hard work, but I think that's the stuff that is luring people into ministry throughout the ages, is to know that we're making a difference, but we're not going to feel sorrowful about it at the end of the line when it's over. We're going to be proud of what we did. And I just hope that that stuff will endure and it has a chance to shape the world around us. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, that's an important thing that I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about this on Trinity. The whole, the outrage, the peace, that's, again, one thing that we talk about all the time. I think we're just in that culture that needs to continue to wrestle with that. So
it's interesting. Like I think I mentioned this to you yesterday as we were trying to brainstorm. What should we talk about? Should we talk about this or not? I actually listened to a lecture before this happened. Somebody recorded way before, and I was just kind of catching up on a podcast I was listening to. And they were talking about how Christians were misunderstood in the first several centuries. Yeah, I mean, they had closed meetings, so outsiders only got like bits and pieces and almost kind of like gossip about what these Christians were doing. And people had the wrong idea about what was going on. Right. And they were hassled because of it. And this lecturer was asked, well, was there another group, another cult or another worship community that was misunderstood because of their meetings? And they said, the people who followed the Greek god Dionysus. And I thought, how strange.
That is strange.
But, like, these were, these folks had common experiences back in the day, and they're on opposite sides today. Yep. I'm not saying that there's an ocean of sameness between Dionysus worship and the worship of Jesus and the followers of Jesus, but I just thought, how interesting, centuries later, that our culture could do this type of thing, even though they had a common experience back in the day.
Nothing new under the sun, I suppose.
Yes, here we go. There wouldn't be an episode of Trending if, like, Chesterton, Jimmy Fallon, or Kohelet, the teacher from Ecclesiastes, is not quoted.
We got our 3D printed sign. Now we need like a Mount Rushmore, a trending Mount Rushmore.
Hey, maybe you can help us with that.
Chesterton has to be on it. I think Jimmy Fallon has to be on it. So 2 spots up for grabs.
All right, man. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for those of you watching, listening. We hope to see you again next week. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening.
Yep.
See you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.